The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with tension as three alien species debated the fate of an insignificant corner of space. Towering crystalline beings known as selenites flickered with internal light patterns that served as their language. Across from them, the reptilian Corvan delegates hissed softly among themselves, their scaled hands never far from their weapons. Between these two factions sat the Mindari, pale humanoid creatures whose large black eyes held the wisdom of centuries and the power to read thoughts. "The humans have rejected our offer again," announced Counselor Vex of the Selenites, his crystal body pulsing red with irritation. "These primitives dare to refuse our guidance when they should be grateful for our attention." General Thex of the Corvan Federation slammed his clawed fist onto the council table. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. Guidance? Why waste time with words? These mammals emerged from their little planet only 200 years ago. They fly around in crude metal ships powered by fusion reactors that our ancestors abandoned millennia ago. We should simply take their worlds and be done with it. The Mindari representative, Elder Cole, raised one thin hand for silence. His mental voice touched the minds of all present, carrying undertones of ancient authority. "Patience, my colleagues. These humans are not unique. Every few thousand years, a new species discovers faster than light travel and believes themselves ready to join galactic civilization. Most destroy themselves within centuries. Others learn their place and become useful servants. The humans will follow one of these paths." "But they are different somehow," Vex insisted, his crystalline form shifting to a worried blue hue. "Our trade missions report strange things. Their ships are crude, yes, but their crew members show no fear when faced with our superior technology. They act as if they expect to be treated as equals." Thex laughed, a harsh sound like grinding stone. "Arrogance born of ignorance. When I personally offered them protection in exchange for mining rights to their outer colonies, their captain actually told me they could protect themselves. A species that has not even learned to harness zero-point energy thinks it can stand against fleets that have conquered star systems for 10,000 years. Elder Cole leaned forward, his black eyes reflecting the chamber's lights like pools of oil. "Tell me more about this encounter, General. What exactly did this human captain say and do?" His name was Reed, I think. Young by their standards, perhaps 40 of their years. I approached his vessel with only a small patrol fleet, 3 ships to their 1. A gesture of restraint on my part. Thex's voice carried the tone of someone recounting an amusing story to friends. I offered them a simple arrangement. They would provide us with detailed surveys of their territory and mining rights to uninhabited worlds. In return, we would ensure no hostile forces troubled their shipping lanes. "A generous offer," Vex agreed. "Most new species accept such arrangements eagerly." What was his response? The human looked directly at me through the communication screen. No fear, no awe at speaking to a Corvan general whose fleets had broken entire civilizations. He simply said thank you for the offer, but humanity preferred to handle its own security needs. Then he had the audacity to suggest we might find trade more profitable than protection schemes. Elder Cole's mental touch grew more intense, probing for details. "Describe his manner more precisely. Was he boastful, aggressive? Did he make threats or show weapons?" "That is what puzzled me," Thex admitted, his earlier amusement fading. "He was perfectly polite, professional even. He spoke as if declining an offer from a business partner, not a superior military force. When I pointed out that 3 of our ships could easily destroy his 1 vessel, he simply nodded and said that would be unfortunate for everyone involved. Then he wished me safe travels and ended the communication." "And you let him go?" Vex's crystal body flashed between blue and red, confusion mixing with disbelief. I was curious to see what he would do next. His ship began to move away at a steady pace, showing no signs of panic or haste. But then something odd happened. My sensor operator reported multiple contacts appearing at the edge of our detection range. When we investigated, we found nothing. Empty space. But the contacts had appeared in a perfect sphere around our position, exactly at maximum sensor range. Elder Cole's eyes widened slightly, the first sign of emotion he had shown. A sphere? You are certain? Absolutely. 17 contacts. All. Appearing simultaneously, all at precisely the same distance. My tactical officer said it was probably sensor ghosts or interference from a nearby pulsar, but the timing was suspicious. Vex's crystalline form had gone completely blue, the color of deep thought. General, in your military experience, what formation would you use to completely surround and monitor a small fleet without revealing your true numbers? Thex was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had lost its mocking tone. I would place sensor platforms or cloaked vessels in a sphere pattern, each one at the maximum range where they could observe without being detected. But that would require coordination between dozens of units and technology advanced enough to avoid our sensors entirely. The humans have been traveling between stars for only 2 centuries, Elder Cole said slowly. In that time, they have established colonies on fewer than 50 worlds, their population numbers in the mere billions, not trillions, like our own civilizations. Their ships use fusion drives that produce energy signatures we can detect from light years away. Yet they decline our protection and show no fear of our fleets, Vex added. And somehow, 17 contacts appear around a Corvan patrol group at exactly the moment needed to send a message. General Thex stood abruptly, his massive form casting shadows across the council table. You think they were watching? That they somehow detected our approach and positioned forces to observe the encounter? I think, Elder Cole said carefully, that we may have underestimated these humans. The question is whether they are more clever than they appear, or whether there is something about their nature we do not yet understand. There is a simple way to find out, Thex growled. I can return with a proper fleet, 100 ships instead of 3. We will see how brave they are when facing overwhelming force. No. Elder Cole's mental command carried such authority that both Thex and Vex stepped back. We will observe them more carefully first. Something about this situation troubles me deeply. In 3 million years of galactic history, we have encountered thousands of emerging species. None have ever behaved quite like this. Vex's crystal form pulsed thoughtfully. What do you propose? We watch. We study. We learn what makes these humans different before we act. And perhaps most importantly, we investigate those sensor contacts. If the humans do possess technology or capabilities we have not accounted for, we need to understand them before making any aggressive moves. The council chamber fell silent as the 3 species considered this unexpected development. Somewhere, in the depths of space, human ships continued their quiet journeys between the stars, carrying secrets that would soon shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Dr. Valen had spent 3 centuries studying the ruins of dead civilizations, but nothing had prepared him for what lay beneath the surface of Kepler 438c. The Selenite archaeologist's crystalline form glowed with excited pulses of light as he directed his team through the underground chambers they had discovered on this forgotten world at the galaxy's edge. The construction methods make no sense, he transmitted to his research partner, a young Corvan named Dex, who specialized in ancient metallurgy. Look at these support beams. The molecular structure suggests they were not forged or manufactured in any way we understand. It appears the metal was somehow convinced to grow into these exact shapes. Dex ran his scanner over the gleaming surface of a pillar that stretched up into darkness above them. The alloy composition is impossible, too. These elements should not be able to bond in this configuration without exotic manufacturing processes that require stellar-level energy sources. Yet the construction shows no signs of stress or artificial fusion points. How old do you estimate these ruins to be? Valen asked, though he dreaded the answer. His own preliminary scans had suggested dates that challenged everything they knew about galactic history. At least 4 million years, Dex replied quietly. Possibly much older. The radioactive decay patterns in the trace elements suggest these. Materials have been stable for geological periods of time. Valen's light patterns shifted to deep purple, the selenite color for profound confusion. That predates the rise of our own civilization by over 3 million years. It predates every known interstellar culture in our records. What species could have built this? Their conversation was interrupted by an excited transmission from the surface. Dr. Valen, you need to see what we found in the northern excavation site. There are structures here that appear to be completely intact, as if they were abandoned. Yesterday, the two scientists made their way through winding tunnels that showed no signs of age or wear. The walls were smooth as glass, formed from the same impossible materials they had been studying. Emergency lighting systems still functioned, casting a soft glow that adjusted automatically to their presence. When they reached the surface site, Valan understood why his team sounded so disturbed. Rising from the excavated ground was a complex of buildings that looked like they belonged in a modern city, not an ancient ruin. The architecture was clean and functional, built from materials that showed no weathering despite their incredible age. The environmental systems are still active, reported his chief surveyor, a Mindari named Tel. Atmosphere inside the buildings is perfectly breathable. Temperature controls respond to occupancy. Some kind of central computer network appears to be monitoring the entire complex. After 4 million years, Dex's voice cracked with disbelief. What power source could maintain systems for that long? They entered the largest building through doors that opened silently at their approach. Inside, they found something that challenged their understanding of galactic history even more profoundly. The walls were covered with star charts and navigation data that mapped not just their local region, but spiral arms on the far side of the galaxy that their own civilizations had never explored. These charts showed jump routes between star systems, Valan observed, studying the complex three-dimensional displays that activated as they moved through the room. But not just any routes. These are optimized paths that would allow travel across the entire galaxy in a fraction of the time our fastest ships require. Tel, being Mindari, was naturally drawn to what appeared to be information storage systems. When he attempted to interface with the alien computers using his telepathic abilities, the results were startling. "I can access some of the data," he reported, his mental voice tight with concentration. "But it is like trying to drink from an ocean. The information storage capacity is beyond anything we have ever encountered. And the data itself—" He paused, his large black eyes widening. "It contains detailed surveys of thousands of star systems, including complete biological and geological profiles. Systems that we have never explored, systems that we did not even know existed." "Show us our home systems," Valan requested. "See if this database contains information about selenite space." Tel's mental probe delved deeper into the alien archive. After several minutes of intense concentration, he stumbled backward as if physically struck. "It knows everything," he whispered. "Complete surveys of every world in selenite territory, detailed biological profiles of our species, including genetic information and cultural development patterns. The same for Corvin space and Mindari worlds. But the survey dates—" He trailed off, unable to continue. "What about the dates?" Dex pressed. "The most recent entries for our territories are over 2 million years old. Someone mapped our entire region of space before our civilizations learned to make fire." The implications hung in the air like a heavy weight. Whoever built this facility had possessed technology that allowed them to survey and catalog the entire galaxy millions of years before any current civilization had developed beyond primitive tool use. "There is something else," Tel continued reluctantly. "The database contains a section labeled Developmental Monitoring Protocols. It appears to be a set of guidelines for observing emerging species without interference. Observing whom? Valan asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Everyone. Every species currently active in galactic civilization is listed, along with detailed predictions about their technological and social development. The accuracy is disturbing. Events that happened in our recent history are described in files that are millions of years old. Dex was examining another section of the facility when he made a discovery that sent chills through the entire team. "You need to look at this," he called. "I found what appears to be a communication center." The equipment is still functional, and it is receiving signals. They gathered around displays that showed incoming transmissions from across the galaxy. Most were routine communications between the various civilizations they knew. Trade negotiations between Selenite colonies, military reports from Corvan fleets, Mindari cultural exchanges. They are monitoring current galactic communications, Valan realized. After 4 million years, this facility is still actively gathering intelligence on every major civilization in known space. But who built it? Dex asked. What species possessed this level of technology millions of years before the rest of us even existed? Their answer came from an unexpected source. Hidden deep in the database, Tell discovered a section of files labeled Origin Archive. When he accessed them, the central display filled with an image that made all 3 scientists take involuntary steps backward. The image showed a star system with a single yellow sun and 9 planets. The 3rd planet from the star was covered with blue oceans and green continents. It was immediately recognizable to anyone who had studied the newer species in the galaxy. "That is Sol," Valan said quietly. "The human home system." "According to this data," Tell reported, his mental voice barely above a whisper, "this facility was constructed by human explorers 4.7 million years ago. They called it a long watch station, part of a network designed to monitor galactic development while the builders went into what they termed deep sleep protocols." The 3 scientists stood in stunned silence, surrounded by technology that redefined their understanding of galactic history. Somewhere in the galaxy, the species they had dismissed as primitive newcomers had built a civilization that spanned the stars when their own worlds were still cooling from their formation. "We need to report this immediately," Valan finally managed. "The Council must know what we have discovered." But even as they prepared their urgent transmission to the Galactic Council, none of them could shake the feeling that they were being watched by ancient eyes that had been observing the galaxy for longer than their civilizations had existed. In the hidden depths of a world that existed on no public star charts, Admiral Kane opened his eyes for the first time in 3,000 years. The stasis chamber around him hummed quietly as systems that had maintained his life for millennia gradually brought him back to full consciousness. His first sensation was not the expected disorientation of someone awakening from deep sleep, but rather the urgent pulse of alert signals that had triggered his revival. Haven was invisible to most scanning technologies, protected by gravitational fields that bent light and sensor waves around it like water flowing around a stone. For over 4 million years, it had served as one of dozens of monitoring stations scattered throughout the galaxy, staffed by volunteers who took turns in stasis, while automated systems kept watch over the younger species developing across the stars. Kane sat up slowly, his enhanced physiology quickly adapting to consciousness after the long sleep. Around him, other stasis pods were beginning to activate as the facility's central intelligence determined how many watchers would be needed to address the current situation. The soft hiss of releasing pressure and the quiet hum of revival systems filled the chamber as his fellow guardians began to wake. "Status report," Kane requested, his voice carrying easily through the facility's communication system despite not having spoken in 3 millennia. "Multiple priority alerts, Admiral," responded the facility's artificial intelligence, its voice carrying the warm tones programmed by designers who had been dust for millions of years. Galactic Council forces have been probing human colonial space with increasing aggression. More critically, archaeological teams have discovered Long Watch Station 7 and accessed its databases. Kane stood and walked to the central command chamber, his movements smooth and confident despite the long stasis. The genetic modifications that allowed Watchers to sleep for millennia also ensured they suffered no degradation from the process. He was as capable now as he had been when he first volunteered for this duty during humanity's golden age. "Show me the current galactic situation," he ordered. The command chamber filled with holographic displays showing the positions of major civilizations throughout the galaxy. The Selenite Collective, Corvan Federation, and Mindari Empire dominated vast regions of space with their thousands of colonies and massive fleets. In comparison, the handful of human colonies looked pathetically small and vulnerable. "The young ones have grown bold in our absence," Kane observed. "Their civilizations span star systems that were empty when we last walked among the stars. How long since we sealed the archives and went into deep sleep?" 4.7 million years, Admiral. The last active Watchers entered stasis as the final phase of the Great Withdrawal was completed. Kane nodded thoughtfully. The Great Withdrawal had been humanity's greatest act of sacrifice and wisdom. Rather than rule over the galaxy as conquering gods, they had chosen to step back and allow younger species to develop naturally. It had taken centuries to dismantle their vast civilization, hide their technology, and establish the monitoring networks that would keep watch over the galaxy's development. "What triggered the priority alerts?" he asked. Corvan General Thex encountered human Captain Reed near the Centauri colonies. The general's behavior suggested hostile intent toward human space. Additionally, the Galactic Council has been debating military action against human territories, viewing them as primitive newcomers ripe for conquest. Admiral Kane studied the tactical displays with growing concern. The current human colonies represented the descendants of settlements that had been deliberately isolated during the Great Withdrawal, their technological capabilities artificially limited to allow them to develop alongside the younger alien species. They had no knowledge of their true heritage or the sleeping guardians watching over them. "They think our children are defenseless," Kane said quietly. "Show me the archaeological discovery." The displays shifted to show the excavation site at Kepler 438c. Kane watched the alien scientists exploring the Long Watch Station with a mixture of amusement and concern. Dr. Valen and his team moved through chambers that Kane remembered helping to design, accessing databases that contained the accumulated knowledge of humanity's first galactic civilization. "Have they accessed the full archives?" he asked. "Partial access only. The Mindari researcher has retrieved some historical data, but the security protocols you established are holding. They know the station was built by humans, but not the full scope of our civilization or the existence of the Watcher network. And the other alien powers? How are they responding to this discovery?" The Galactic Council is in emergency session. The revelation that humans possessed advanced technology millions of years ago has shaken their assumptions about galactic history. However, they appear to be interpreting this as evidence of a long-extinct human civilization, not realizing the builders might still exist. Kane turned to address the other Watchers, who had awakened and were now filing into the command chamber. They were a diverse group, representing different eras of humanity's development and various specializations needed for their guardianship role. Some had been soldiers in humanity's ancient armies, others had been scientists, explorers, or diplomats. All had volunteered to sacrifice their normal lives to serve as silent protectors of the galaxy's development. "My friends," Kane began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded fleets when stars were young. "The time of passive observation is ending. Our descendants face threats from civilizations that mistake wisdom for weakness and restraint for vulnerability." Commander Torres, who had awakened from a stasis pod near Kane's own, stepped forward. She had been one of humanity's greatest military strategists during the expansion era, her tactical brilliance legendary even among a species known for its adaptability in warfare. "What are our orders, Admiral?" she asked. "Begin Phase 1 of the Revelation Protocols," Kane commanded. "Activate the Guardian fleets and long-range monitoring networks. I want to know the position and status of every alien vessel within 50 light-years of human space. Begin subtle interventions to discourage aggressive actions against our descendants." "How subtle?" asked Dr. Park, a scientist who had specialized in xenobiology during humanity's first contact with alien life. "The current alien civilizations possess significant military capabilities. Their fleets number in the thousands." Kane smiled, an expression that carried both warmth and an edge of steel that spoke of authority tested in conflicts the current galactic powers could not imagine. "They have impressive fleets," he agreed. "Thousands of ships built with technology they developed over millennia of careful progress. But they do not know what lies sleeping in the spaces between the stars. They have never seen what humanity was capable of when we chose to build for war instead of peace." The command chamber's displays activated additional layers of information, revealing the true scope of humanity's hidden presence in the galaxy. What had appeared to be empty space suddenly showed the energy signatures of massive installations. Derelict hulks that alien surveys had cataloged as ancient debris began showing power readings as systems that had slept for millions of years started their activation sequences. "The Corvan Federation maintains 12 major fleet bases," Torres observed, studying the tactical readouts. "The Selenite Collective has fortified 47 star systems with orbital defense platforms. The Mindari Empire relies on mobility, but their forces are scattered across wide territories." "And they believe themselves to be the masters of the galaxy," Kane replied. "It is time they learned they have been children playing in a garden tended by others. Begin with navigation errors and system malfunctions. Nothing that appears overtly hostile, but enough to make them reconsider any aggressive actions against human space." "And if they persist?" Dr. Park asked. "Then they will discover that the galaxy's true masters have been sleeping, not dead," Kane answered, "and that humanity's patience, while vast, is not infinite. Across the galaxy, systems that had lain dormant for millions of years began to stir. Ancient ships larger than cities started their slow awakening process. Defensive networks that could reshape the very fabric of space itself ran diagnostic checks, and in the darkness between the stars, the true scope of humanity's first galactic empire prepared to reveal itself to civilizations that had never imagined such power could exist. The Corvan battle fleet Iron Claw had been the pride of General Thex's command for over 2 decades. Its 12 heavy cruisers and accompanying destroyer squadrons had broken the resistance of 17 different worlds during the Federation's expansion campaigns. Now, as they approached the edge of human space with orders to establish protective monitoring stations, General Thex expected this to be his easiest victory yet. "Sensors show no significant human presence in this sector," reported his tactical officer, a scarred veteran named Voss who had served under Thex for most of his military career. "A few merchant vessels and what appears to be a small patrol craft. Nothing that could threaten even one of our ships." Thex studied the tactical display with satisfaction. The humans had established a colony on the 3rd planet of this system, a modest settlement of perhaps 50,000 individuals. Intelligence reports suggested they possessed only basic defensive capabilities and a handful of system patrol boats. It would be a simple matter to establish orbital stations and demonstrate Federation superiority. "Begin approach to the primary world," he commanded. "Standard intimidation formation. I want their leadership to understand immediately that resistance would be futile." The Iron Claw fleet advanced in perfect formation, their ships' hulls gleaming with the dark metal that gave the fleet its name. For the first hour, everything proceeded exactly as planned. Then the small problems began. "Sir," Voss reported, confusion evident in his voice. I'm getting fluctuating readings from our primary navigation array. The stellar positioning data keeps shifting slightly. Equipment malfunction. Thex dismissed. Run a diagnostic and switch to backup systems. But the diagnostic showed all systems functioning perfectly, even as the navigation errors continued. What should have been a simple approach to the human colony became increasingly difficult as their instruments provided contradictory information about their position and velocity. "General," called out his communications officer, "I'm receiving reports from the other ships in the fleet. They're all experiencing similar navigation problems." Similar reports were coming in from Selenite and Mindari forces across the galaxy. The collective's exploration fleet Crystal Dawn found itself hopelessly lost in what should have been familiar space, their normally precise jump calculations failing repeatedly. Mindari diplomatic vessels discovered their telepathic navigation, methods disrupted by strange interference that felt almost like whispers at the edge of consciousness. Dr. Valan was experiencing his own crisis back at the Long Watch station. The alien facility had begun exhibiting new behaviors since his team's initial discoveries. Sections that had been sealed were opening spontaneously, revealing chambers filled with technology that defied understanding. The entire complex appears to be coming online, he reported to the Galactic Council through an increasingly unreliable communication link. Systems that have been dormant for millions of years are activating throughout the facility, and the database... He paused, struggling to find words for what they had discovered. The database is rewriting itself. Information that was not there yesterday is appearing in the archives. Elder Cole of the Mindari Empire received this report with growing unease. His species' natural telepathic abilities gave them insights that others missed, and what he was sensing from across the galaxy filled him with dread. "The mental background of space itself is changing," he reported to his fellow council members. "For millennia, the psychic environment of the galaxy has been stable, predictable. Now there are presences awakening. Ancient minds that have been sleeping for longer than our civilizations have existed." "Impossible," Counselor Vex of the Selenites declared, though his crystal form flickered with uncertainty. "Our surveys have mapped every inhabited system in the galaxy. There are no unknown civilizations with that level of capability." Their debate was interrupted by an urgent transmission from General Thex. The Corvin commander's usually confident demeanor had been replaced by barely controlled panic. "Council members," he began, "my fleet has encountered something unprecedented. We are currently somewhere. Our navigation systems are functioning perfectly according to all diagnostics, but they disagree with our actual position by several light years. More importantly, we are not alone out here." The transmission showed the view from the Ironclaw's main bridge. Surrounding Thex's fleet in a perfect sphere were shapes that challenged comprehension. They were clearly artificial constructs, but built on a scale that dwarfed anything in the known galaxy. Each vessel was easily the size of a small moon. Their hulls formed from materials that seemed to absorb and reflect light in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "How many?" Elder Cole asked, though his telepathic probe had already given him an answer that he desperately hoped was wrong. 17, Thex replied. "The same number as those sensor contacts I reported from my earlier encounter with the human captain. But council members, these are not patrol boats or hidden platforms. These are war machines on a scale that our entire combined fleets could not match." Similar reports were flooding in from across the galaxy. Every major alien fleet that had been positioned near human space found themselves surrounded by these massive vessels. Ships that had been catalogued as derelict ancient hulks or natural phenomena were revealing themselves to be something far more threatening. The revelation came when Dr. Valan's team finally accessed the deepest levels of the Long Watch station's database. What they found there shattered every assumption about galactic history and humanity's place in it. The humans were not a primitive species that recently developed space travel. Valen reported to the emergency council session, his crystalline form pulsing with colors that indicated extreme distress. They are the descendants of the galaxy's first and greatest interstellar civilization. What we know as the current human colonies are actually survivors who were deliberately isolated and technologically limited. That is impossible, Vex protested. Humans use fusion drives and kinetic weapons. Their ships are barely capable of faster-than-light travel. Because that is what their guardians allowed them to develop, Valen continued. The true human civilization withdrew from active participation in galactic affairs over 4 million years ago. They have been watching us develop ever since, monitoring our progress from hidden bases throughout the galaxy. The implications crashed over the council like a tidal wave. Every assumption about their civilization's importance, every belief about their technological superiority, every plan for galactic expansion and control, all of it was built on the foundation of a lie. They were not the galaxy's elder races. They were children playing in a garden tended by others. The massive ships surrounding our fleets, Elder Cole said quietly, his mental voice barely above a whisper. They are not newly awakened. They have been there all along, watching, waiting. The communication channel crackled with interference, then cleared to reveal a new voice. The figure on the screen was clearly human, but unlike any the alien leaders had encountered before. Admiral Kane wore no uniform they recognized, bore no insignia of any current human government. His eyes held the weight of ages, and when he spoke, it was with the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed by entire civilizations. Galactic Council, he began. I am Admiral Kane of the Human Watchers. For over 4 million years, we have observed your species' development with pride and hope. We have watched you grow from primitive tool users to spacefaring civilizations capable of great achievements. We have guided subtly when necessary, protected you from dangers you could not perceive, and celebrated your successes as if they were our own children's accomplishments. He paused, allowing the weight of his words to sink in. However, your recent actions toward our descendants in human space have forced us to abandon our policy of non-interference. The time has come for you to learn the truth about your place in this galaxy and ours. The transmission ended, leaving the Galactic Council in stunned silence. Across the galaxy, alien fleets found themselves surrounded by evidence of a technological capability that made their proudest achievements look like children's toys. The balance of power that had defined galactic civilization for millennia had just shifted in a way that none of them had imagined possible. In the space between the stars, ancient human dreadnoughts completed their awakening sequence, their weapons, systems charging for the first time in millions of years. The galaxy's true masters had returned to active participation in its affairs, and nothing would ever be the same again. 3 months after Admiral Kane's revelation, the galaxy was still adjusting to its new reality. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had been redesigned to accommodate a fourth faction, though the humans who now participated in galactic governance bore little resemblance to the colonial representatives the other species had expected to meet. Captain Reed sat in the observer section, watching as the formal integration of human space into the galactic community proceeded with careful deliberation. The same man who had politely declined General Thex's protection offer now found himself serving as a liaison between the colonial human governments and their ancient cousins who had awakened from millions of years of slumber. The mineral rights to the Vega system will be jointly administered, Admiral Kane was explaining to the assembled delegates, his tone patient but firm. The Selenite Collective will provide their expertise in crystal matrix technology, while human facilities will handle the more complex extraction processes. Both civilizations will benefit from the arrangement. General Thex, his earlier arrogance replaced by careful respect, raised a scaled hand. Admiral, my government wishes to understand the scope of human territorial claims. Our previous maps of the galaxy appear to have been incomplete. Kane smiled, an expression that carried both warmth and the subtle reminder of power beyond imagination. General, humanity has no territorial claims in the traditional sense. We withdrew from active governance precisely to avoid the conflicts that arise from competing powers trying to control the same resources. However, we do maintain monitoring stations and defensive installations throughout the galaxy. These will remain under our direct control. Dr. Valan, who had become something of an expert on ancient human technology since his discoveries at the Long Watch station, consulted his notes before speaking. Admiral Kane, our archaeological surveys have identified several hundred sites with similar characteristics to the station my team discovered. Are all of these human installations? Dr. Valan, your research has been invaluable in helping us reconnect with facilities that have been operating automatically for millions of years, Kane replied. Yes, there are currently 437 active monitoring stations throughout the galaxy, along with various other installations. Many of them have been functioning all this time, quietly observing and protecting the development of younger civilizations. The scale of it was staggering. For millions of years, an invisible network of human technology had been spread throughout the galaxy, watching, protecting, and subtly guiding the development of every species that reached for the stars. Elder Cole of the Mindari Empire leaned forward, his large black eyes reflecting deep curiosity. Admiral, may I ask about the nature of your people's long sleep? How did you maintain your civilization while remaining hidden for so long? The Great Withdrawal was the most ambitious project in human history, Kane explained. We realized that our continued active presence in the galaxy would prevent younger species from developing their own unique paths to the stars. So we made a choice that no civilization before or since has attempted. We deliberately dismantled our visible empire and entered extended stasis, leaving only automated systems and volunteer watchers to ensure the galaxy's continued development. Commander Torres, who had taken charge of integrating the awakened. Watchers, with their colonial descendants, added, the process took over 1,000 years to complete. We had to carefully hide our technology, establish monitoring networks, and create protocols that would protect developing civilizations without interfering in their natural growth. Counselor Vex's crystalline form pulsed with admiration mixed with disbelief. The sacrifice involved must have been enormous. Your civilization gave up active participation in galactic affairs for millions of years. We gained something far more valuable, Kane replied. We watched you grow. We saw the Selenites develop their unique crystal-based technology, creating beauty and functionality we never imagined. We observed the Corvin Federation's military innovations and their surprisingly effective approach to interstellar logistics. We witnessed the Mindari Empire's mastery of telepathic communication and their elegant solutions to collective decision-making. He gestured to the assembled delegates with genuine warmth. Each of your civilizations developed capabilities and perspectives that humanity alone could never have achieved. By stepping back, we allowed the galaxy to become far richer and more diverse than it would have been under our continued dominance. Dr. Grant, the human archaeologist who had made the first connections between ancient Earth ruins and galactic artifacts, spoke from the colonial delegation section. Admiral, what does this mean for those of us who grew up not knowing our heritage? The colonial worlds have developed their own cultures and governments over thousands of years. Your independence and unique development are treasures beyond measure, Kane assured him. The colonial worlds will continue to govern themselves as they choose. We offer knowledge, technology, and protection, but never dominance. The galaxy needs your fresh perspectives and the innovations you've developed through your own struggles and discoveries. General Thex cleared his throat nervously. Admiral Kane, I must ask about the military implications of this revelation. The vessels that surrounded my fleet were beyond anything we had imagined possible. How should the galactic powers view these capabilities? Kane's expression grew more serious. General, those ships have existed in your vicinity for your entire military career. They could have destroyed your fleets at any time, yet they never fired a shot until their presence was necessary to prevent aggression against defenseless colonies. This should tell you everything you need to know about human intentions. But the technology gap, Vex pressed. Your capabilities so far exceed our own that traditional balance of power politics becomes meaningless, which is precisely why we withdrew in the first place, Commander Torres explained. Overwhelming technological superiority leads to stagnation and resentment. Instead, we propose a different model, guided cooperation rather than enforced submission. Elder Cole's mental voice carried undertones of wonder. You are suggesting that humanity will serve as guardians rather than rulers? We have been guardians for over 4 million years, Kane pointed out. Nothing about that role changes, except that we no longer need to hide our existence. The galaxy faces new challenges that will require cooperation between all our civilizations. There are other galaxies out there, some with their own developing civilizations, others with threats that no single species could face alone. The revelation sent ripples of excitement and apprehension through the assembled delegates. The scope of existence had just expanded beyond their wildest imagination. Other galaxies? Dr. Valan asked, his crystalline form flickering rapidly with intense curiosity. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected signs of civilization in the Andromeda. Galaxy, Kane confirmed. Some appear peaceful, others less so. There are also phenomena moving between galaxies that we do not yet understand. The challenges ahead will require the combined wisdom and capabilities of all our species. Captain Reed stood up from the Observer section. Admiral, speaking for the colonial worlds, we accept this partnership. Our people have always believed in human potential, but we never imagined it had already been proven on such a scale. We're honored to be part of something larger. General Thex surprised everyone by standing as well. The Corvan Federation formally requests to join this new galactic alliance. We apologize for our earlier aggressive intentions toward human space. We did not understand. There is no need for apologies, Kane replied graciously. You acted according to the information available to you. Now we all have better information, and we can build something better together. One by one, the other delegations voiced their agreement to the new arrangement. The Selenite Collective would contribute their expertise in energy-efficient technologies and crystal-based computing. The Mindari Empire would serve as diplomatic coordinators, using their telepathic abilities to facilitate communication between species. The Corvan Federation would provide security and logistics support for the expanded exploration efforts. As the formal session concluded, Dr. Valan found himself standing beside Admiral Kane, looking out at the stars through the council chamber's vast, transparent wall. Admiral, he said quietly, may I ask what you hope to achieve with this new alliance? Kane was silent for a long moment, his eyes focused on the distant galaxies visible beyond their own. Dr. Valan, 4 million years ago, humanity made the choice to nurture rather than dominate. We watched you all grow from primitive tribes to star-spanning civilizations. You have exceeded our proudest expectations and become partners worthy of the greatest adventures imaginable. He turned to face the Selenite scientist, his expression filled with anticipation. Now, together, we are going to see what lies beyond the edge of our galaxy. We are going to meet civilizations that have never known human guidance, face challenges that will test everything we have learned, and perhaps discover that we ourselves are still young in the greater scope of the universe. In the distance, construction had already begun on new ships designed not for war but for exploration, vessels that combined human engineering with Selenite energy systems, Corvan durability, and Mindari communication networks. The galaxy's civilizations were no longer competing for dominance, but cooperating toward goals that none of them could achieve alone. The age of the Watchers was ending, but the age of true galactic civilization had only just begun, and in the vast darkness between galaxies, Ancient signals detected by human monitoring stations suggested that the greatest adventures were still waiting to be discovered.